Thank you for taking the time to review this webinar on induced seismicity presented by the BC Oil and Gas Commission. My name is Stuart Venables. I am a professional geologist and retain the role of Senior Petroleum Geologist for the Commission. I will walk you through each slide in this presentation. Follow-up questions and comments that you may have can be directed to stakeholder@bcogc.ca. This presentation will also be posted so you can reference it later. The Commission is a single-window regulatory agency with responsibilities for overseeing oil and gas operations, refineries, and geothermal development in British Columbia. Companies looking to explore, develop, produce, and market oil and gas resources in BC must apply to the Commission. Our team is made up of over 275 dedicated professionals, including experts in air, water, land, and subsurface resources. Our team makes decisions on proposed oil and gas and geothermal activities. When making these decisions, we're charged with protecting public and environmental safety while balancing a broad range of environmental, economic, and social considerations. From exploration through to final reclamation, we work closely with communities and landowners and confirm industry compliance with provincial legislation. We also ensure that there are close working relationships with Indigenous peoples. We provide British Columbia with regulatory excellence in responsible energy resource development by protecting public safety, safeguarding the environment, and respecting those individuals and communities who are affected. We have offices across BC. Our primary office is in Fort St. John, and we have additional staff in Victoria, Kelowna, Dawson Creek, Fort Nelson, Prince George, and Terrace. Throughout this presentation, I will refer to certain key terms which have been defined on this page. Seismicity is the geographic and historical distribution of earthquakes. Earthquakes and seismic events are interchangeable terms. Induced seismicity is a seismic event or earthquake resulting from human activity. This presentation will focus on induced seismicity from oil and gas operations. Hydraulic fracturing is an oil and gas operation referring to the injection of fluids under high pressure to crack or fracture the rock to allow oil and gas to flow into the wellbore. This process is designed to enhance the natural fabric of the rock matrix. Disposal refers to the injection of waste fluids into isolated formations, whereby the natural fabric of the rock matrix is deliberately left intact and the formation permanently stores waste fluids. The image on the left is a map of Northeast BC. Maps throughout this presentation are consistent. The gray area is the mountainous region where there is no oil and gas activity. The white area is the edge of the Western Canadian Sedimentary Basin, and this is where oil and gas activity occurs in Northeast BC. In the northern part of the map, there are three shale basins: Cordova Basin, Horn River Basin, and Liard Basin. In the center portion of the map is the Montney Trend, which has a red dashed rectangle around it. This is zoomed in the central area. The Montney Trend is the focus of this presentation. The Montney Trend is approximately 100 kilometers wide and 300 kilometers long. It can be further subdivided into two sub-areas referred to as the South Montney and the North Montney. Combined, these two areas have had 80 events of greater than magnitude 3, with those primarily being related to hydraulic fracturing. Earthquakes are recorded by the strategic placement of seismic sensors throughout Northeast BC. The seismic station records vibrations made by a seismic event. These recordings are analyzed by a specialist to determine the location and magnitude of an event. The map on the left shows all catalogued events recorded by Natural Resources Canada. Natural Resources Canada monitors and records earthquakes across Canada, focusing primarily on significant earthquakes, which are events with larger magnitudes and/or within close proximity to urban centers. As such, smaller events, primarily events less than magnitude 2.5, are not always catalogued. The Commission has partnered with several agencies to supplement the national catalogues by re-examining the seismic station recordings in an effort to catalog smaller events to increase our localized knowledge of seismic patterns. The map on the right shows a supplemental catalog of events from 2014 to 2016. There are far more green dots, which represents events of magnitude 2 or less. Links to Natural Resource Canada's searchable database and supplemental catalogs are available at the end of this presentation. Magnitude is a measurement of the amount of energy released from a seismic event. The most common scale used is the Richter magnitude scale. Each order of magnitude on the Richter scale represents a 10-fold increase in energy release. So a magnitude 4 event releases 10 times more energy than a magnitude 3 event. You may ask, as you look at the image on the left, how can a magnitude be negative? The original scale was derived using technology from the 1930s. The smallest detectable earthquake at that time was given a measurement just above magnitude 0. Nowadays, seismic sensors are so sensitive they can detect events hundreds of times smaller than was possible in the 1930s. Rather than redo the scale and republish all events, the scale was extended below 0. Events measuring below magnitude 0 are called microseismic. The effect of a seismic event on the surrounding area is intensity, which is a description of how much vibration someone perceives. The image on the right provides the intensity scale, referred to as the modified Mercalli scale. Depending on the description of a seismic event, the specific location is assigned a number from 1 to 10. The assigned intensity for an earthquake varies and decreases as you move away from the epicenter. Individuals, including your neighbor, may have very different perceived intensities depending on how close someone is to the epicenter of the event, the superficial geology in the area, and whether a person is indoor, on the ground floor, or on an upper level, or outdoors, among other factors. When a seismic event occurs, vibrations radiate out from the epicenter. The closer a person is to the epicenter, the stronger they will perceive shaking from the event. The maps shown on the slide depict increasing magnitude events as you move from left to right, and their respective vibration patterns. Smaller events may be felt close to the epicenter, but the vibrations dissipate quickly, whereas larger events have a slower decay rate, and shaking may be felt more broadly. Seismic events from induced earthquakes are far more likely to be felt when indoors. This is partly because you can perceive the shaking as the waveforms from the earthquake interact with the structure you're in, but also, while you may not physically perceive shaking, you may observe objects in your house sway, rattle, or vibrate. When a person perceives an earthquake, they are sensing the vibration from the ground motions caused by the energy release. A person is very astute at perceiving acceleration, and when strong motion sensors record an earthquake, they generally report the value as a PGA, or peak ground acceleration. The value can be cross-referenced with reports from people to determine the level of shaking or intensity based upon the modified Mercalli scale, which ranges from 1 to 10. While people tend to feel the acceleration, the impact to structures is better related to the peak ground velocity, or PGV. In Northeast BC, events from induced seismicity tend to have PGA, or accelerations, that can be perceived as moderate to strong shaking, whereas the PGV, or velocity, rarely exceeds an intensity level of 4. This is cataloged in the chart with the blue bubbles. The blue bubbles on the left represent recorded values of ground acceleration, or PGA, and the bubbles on the right are the same events as corresponding PGV, or peak ground velocity. The relationship between acceleration and velocity is probably best explained with an analogy, so let's pretend you're in a car. As you accelerate from a stop, you feel the acceleration as you're pulled back in your seat. If you were to encounter a speed bump after 1 second of acceleration, the impact would be minimal, despite the real feeling of acceleration ahead of time. Whereas if you encountered a speed bump after accelerating for 3 seconds, the impact would be more meaningful. This is because your top speed, or velocity, is related to how long you are accelerating for. The same concept is applied to induced events. Although the acceleration of the ground vibrating may be strongly felt, the duration is short-lived, such that the velocity is minimized. When two tectonic plates collided millions of years ago, mountains were formed in Northeast BC. As a result, to the east of these mountains, foothills were formed before giving way to the plains. The force that formed these mountains is still influencing this area today. In the area called the Disturbed Belt, the subsurface geology is and continues to be impacted and deformed by this ongoing natural pressure. Another feature, called the Fort St. John Graben, formed much before the mountains by forces that pulled the area apart, but today it is reactivated by the pressures that formed the mountains. These two areas represent unique geological features that influence induced seismicity in their respective regions. The influence of these two unique geological features can be outlined when reviewing the distribution of significant seismic events, which would be events equal to or greater than magnitude 3. There have been 135 significant seismic events cataloged within oil and gas operation areas since 1985 in Northeast BC, with 133 of those believed to be induced. Of those events, 80 of the events have occurred along the Montney Trend, with 71 having occurred in the North Montney, which is influenced by the disturbed belt, and 9 having been recorded in the South Montney, which is impacted by the Fort St. John Graben. Although 89% of significant seismic events that are recorded along the Montney Trend occur in the North Montney, only 2% of fault reports are from this region. The dominant source of fault reports is from the South Montney, which is influenced by the Fort St. John Graben. Seismicity in this area produces a high frequency of low magnitude events, which are events less than magnitude 3 that are perceived by local residents. Reports from residents provide crucial descriptions of the shaking they experience. This qualitative analysis can be used to determine the intensity of an event. However, it was determined that additional data should be collected to fully assess the impact of earthquakes in these regions, so ground motion monitoring rules were implemented. The map on the left shows the Montney Trend outlined in orange, and the blue polygons within the Montney Trend represent areas that require additional ground motion monitoring. This requires the deployment of strong motion sensors when fracturing activities occur, and allows for the quantitative analysis of the intensity of any events experienced. If you believe you have experienced an event, please let us know by using the contact info provided on the slide. The Commission has several regulatory tools for the oversight of oil and gas operations, which include induced seismicity. The Drilling and Production Regulation provides suspension thresholds for all injection activities throughout the province. Permit conditions are in place in the North Montney requiring the deployment of strong motion sensors when fracturing activities are occurring. In the South Montney, a special project order has been put in place called the Kiskatna Seismic Monitoring and Mitigation Area Special Project Order. The Kiskatna Seismic Monitoring and Mitigation Area Special Project Order was put in place as a response to the frequency of fault reports from the region and as an effort to increase the transparency of when and where fracturing activities are occurring and their potential impacts. In conjunction with the order, the Commission deployed additional seismic stations to increase our oversight in the area. The map on the left shows the location of additional seismic monitoring stations depicted by green triangles that the Commission deployed in partnership with Pacific Geoscience Centre, a division of Natural Resources Canada. These stations have been further augmented by academic stations, shown on the map on the right as light blue triangles. These have been deployed in the area for both oversight and research purposes. Increasing the station density within the Special Project Order has allowed the Commission to better locate and record all earthquakes in the area. The map on the left shows all events recorded by Natural Resources Canada's National Array for 2017-2018. For the same period, the map on the right shows all events recorded using the enhanced station count in the Special Project area. The additional stations, along with contributions from our partners, makes it possible to record and catalog the smaller seismic events and more accurately ascertain events that are impacting residents in the area. The Commission is partnering with landowners to temporarily place a dense seismic monitoring array in the Tower Lake area to study hydraulic fracturing operations. In cooperation with Natural Resources Canada and a private Canadian company called Simrock, the goal of the project is to increase understanding of induced seismic events in Northeast BC and use the information to reduce fault events in the future. This temporary deployment of 36 additional monitors allows for localized and focused research on a specific area and will help all partners better understand seismicity at a level of detailed resolution not undertaken by any other jurisdiction in Canada. Mitigation refers to actions taken during hydraulic fracturing to reduce or eliminate instances of induced seismicity. There are several approaches taken, but they are all focused towards reducing the influence of injected fluid on pre-existing faults. Several factors play into the causation of induced events, and the Commission continues to work with partner organizations and with academic institutes in the pursuit of accurately delineating all elements that influence induced seismicity and determining effective mitigation strategies. Disposal refers to the injection of waste fluids into isolated, non-productive formations for permanent and safe storage. When fluid is injected, it's done so at pressures designed to keep the rock matrix intact. Disposal in Northeast BC is done into contained reservoirs, which means they have boundaries in all directions, and fluid injected into these reservoirs will eventually reach maximum capacity as designated by the Commission's Reservoir Engineering Department. Although there have been historical instances of significant seismicity related to disposal in Northeast BC, the Commission has made several enhancements to the application, approval, and oversight processes for disposal wells. As such, the instances of significant seismicity related to disposal have been steadily declining. Changes the Commission have made include limiting the pressure at which fluids can be injected into the formation, which in turn limits the rate, and ensuring an annual pressure test is performed each year. The annual pressure test serves to quantify the current pressure within the disposal formation and is used to forecast the remaining disposal volume the reservoir can hold. Much like filling your car tire at the gas station, the air you pump in is pressure limited so you don't blow up your tire when you try to fill it. After filling your tire with some air, you check it with a pressure gauge to decide if more air is necessary. In terms of seismicity related to disposal, as the contained reservoir accepts fluid, the fluids migrate away from the wellbore. As these fluids migrate, they may encounter pre-existing faults. Some pre-existing faults can be susceptible to small pressure increases from the introduced fluids and may slip, causing an earthquake. In the area of the South Montney, the Commission has implemented the Kiskatna Seismic Monitoring and Mitigation Area Special Project, as this area is influenced by the subsurface or far underground structural feature called the Fort St. John Graben. This ancient structure is characterized by many smaller strike-slip faults, which are faults that tend to move side to side. Although these faults tend to result in smaller earthquakes, events less than magnitude 3, the vibrations are perceived by local residents. The area of the North Montney is influenced by its proximity to the disturbed belt, which was formed during the era of mountain building millions of years ago. As a result, there are induced seismic events are from thrust faults, which are faults that tend to go more up and down, and events have a higher probability of being equal to or greater than magnitude 3. Strong motion sensors, often referred to as accelerometers, are required in this area, so the ongoing quantification of shaking relating to events in this area can be continued to be assessed. Not all fracturing activities cause seismic events. There must be pre-existing faults that are susceptible to minimal increases in formation pressure from introduced fluids. Within areas of the North and South Montney, most fracturing activities have no related seismicity. Outside the North and South Montney areas, the subsurface or deep underground is not influenced as greatly by the disturbed belt or the Fort St. John Graben. As such, seismicity is rare to non-existent in the majority of the Montney Trend. Finally, as noted in the previous slide, disposal related to seismicity has been trending down due to successful enhancements to the application and oversight processes of these activities. As the Commission continues to diligently research and understand all aspects of induced seismicity, we have definitive goals to ensure that our work provides clear and transparent information. As we currently rely on Natural Resources Canada for the public catalog of seismic events, the Commission is taking steps to work with our partners to provide our own web-based catalog of supplemental events to ensure a complete and accurate picture of seismic activity in Northeast BC is readily available. It's anticipated that this will be supplemented with strong motion data collected regularly. When an earthquake occurs, it is quickly located and a magnitude is determined. These factors are used to make timely regulatory decisions. However, the shaking caused by events determines the impact. As such, the Commission is moving forward to determine how to best incorporate intensity into regulatory decisions. The Commission partners with many groups to further research into induced seismicity in Northeast BC. These include the Pacific Geoscience Centre, which is a division of Natural Resources Canada, along with Geoscience BC and BC OGRIS, who are directly funding research into this topic. The Commission partners with and provides information to academic institutes such as McGill University and University of Calgary, among several other institutes in Canada and abroad. The Commission encourages independent academic research. All these items are combined towards the goal of proactively determining the effective strategies to minimize and eliminate instances of induced seismicity. Thank you for listening to this presentation. Follow-up questions can be directed to stakeholder@bcogc.ca. Finally, here are links to additional resources on the topic of induced seismicity. Thanks again for your time.